Congressman Colm Willis.
Thank you, Tracy, for inviting me. And thank you all for being here. My name is Colm Willis. I'm a small business lawyer from Staten, and I'm running to be your next congressman. And I'm running for Congress because this is a critical election, a critical moment that will determine the future of our country. If we get this election wrong, our kids are going to grow up in a place that's dominated by socialism, facing religious persecution and the end of the American dream. And I didn't want to tell my girls that I stood on the sidelines while their government was shredding their rights. My wife and I raise our daughters in a 100-year-old home in Staten. My youngest daughter's 1 and my oldest daughter's 3. And over the last few years, I worked full-time while going to school in order to support my family. My wife works as a nurse, so we've had to juggle childcare. And last year, I started my own small business and have had to work through all the headaches involved in that process. And this experience has made it clear to me that our representatives in Congress have left people like us behind. Oregonians today are fighting for their jobs and their families, and they deserve a congressman who will take their fight to Washington. Like many of you, I grew up here in Oregon, and I have great memories of my childhood here. But over the years, it's become clear to me that the Oregon that I grew up in is changing. And in talking to voters, it's clear they're concerned about our jobs, about our safety, and about the loss of our rights. And they should be. But if we get this election right, our state and our country can be better than they've ever been. The Oregon that I grew up in was a place of enormous economic freedom. It was a place where you can make a shoe with a waffle iron and turn it into one of the largest companies on the planet. And that economic freedom meant personal freedom. You could come here from Oregon and be anything you wanted to be. And people did. And small businesses boomed. New ideas and creativity in timber, in farming, tech, and apparel disrupted old industries, created new opportunities, and gave us a reason for excitement and hope. But during that time, some of our leaders didn't like the disruption that this innovation caused. And they started saying, we can solve your problems, but only if you give us your freedom. And they started picking winners and losers in our economy. This started with the timber industry, as we all know, in the 1980s. But recently, they've been picking winners and losers in other industries as well. After college, I took a job with the Joint Economic Committee in the US Senate. These guys just do economic research all day. I was hired in May of 2008, and I got a front row seat to the collapse that occurred that fall. And it was disgusting to watch our leaders spend billions of our tax dollars bailing out the largest corporations with the most powerful lobbyists. Then in 2009, they passed Obamacare. And instead of taking over a few favorite companies, they took over an entire industry. And the results have been devastating to small businesses and working families here in Oregon. There's nothing affordable about it. Because of this law, our monthly premiums have gone up over $200 a month in the last 2 years alone. And small businesses are struggling under its onerous regulations. Small businesses aren't growing anymore here in Oregon. And competition between companies isn't driving up wages because the government's already decided which companies are going to win. And in 2009, when our congressman was asked to stand up and fight for small businesses and working people here in Oregon, he took the side of the lobbyists in Washington. Voters are also concerned about their safety. We now have a situation in the Middle East where a terrorist organization has taken over swaths of territory and has inspired terrorist attacks right here in our own country. The most important job our government has is to defend our country and to keep us safe. But recently, our leaders have cut deals with our enemies and have betrayed our allies. The Obama administration just agreed to a deal with Iran, the largest state sponsor of terrorism in the world, that gives the Iranian regime over $100 billion. And you can't disconnect this decision from our security concerns here at home. The reason ISIS is a problem is because they got access to hundreds of millions of dollars in weapons and equipment that they took from the Iraqis. But we now have a situation where our own government just gave $100 billion to an Iranian regime whose leader still publicly calls for death to America. The Iranians recently fired ballistic missiles capable of taking nuclear weapons to Israel, our closest ally in the Middle East. We trust our representatives in Congress to make the right decisions when it comes to matters as fundamentally important as our national security. But our congressman voted with the Obama administration to give this money to Iran. Our congressman made the wrong decision. Finally, folks are worried about losing their rights. We've now had several high-profile cases here in Oregon where administrative agencies have trampled on the First Amendment rights of people of faith. Most recently, the Commission on Judicial Fitness declared Marion County Judge Vance Day unfit to serve, in part because of his sincerely held religious beliefs defining marriages between a man and a woman. Here in Oregon, judges have the right not to perform weddings for any reason they choose. So when the marriage decision came out, Judge Day asked his staff to refer same-sex couples looking to be married to one of the 8 other judges in his courthouse that do these weddings. And this wasn't a crazy thing to do. Judges in Oregon who oppose the death penalty for religious reasons, they make these types of referrals all the time. But based on his referral policy, our leaders are saying that he's biased and unfit to serve as a judge. Here in Oregon, we coexist with people that are different than us all the time. Very different than us. And instead of dividing us, our leaders should be bringing us together. We can and must defend the rights of people of faith here in Oregon, while also respecting the rights of same-sex couples. And we need to stand up for our state and for our country. Being a conservative in Oregon, it can be disappointing sometimes. It can be hard to know how we can change things. But one thing we can do is win a congressional seat on this side of the mountains this year.
Yeah.
This district is about evenly split between Democrats and Republicans. It's like swing districts that we've been winning all across the country. And the voters are swinging our way. Last election, Dennis Richardson won this district by 15,000 votes. And my campaign released a survey showing us within 6 points of the incumbent in January, before we even aired a single ad. Only a third of voters think that Schrader deserves re-election. So that's why we can win, but I can't do it without your help. So I'm asking you to join my team. And with that, I'm going to stop, and I want to take any questions before I wrap up.
I have a question again.
Yeah.
He's just popping up. Over the years, as a small business lawyer, apparently, that's what you said.
Yeah.
And many of the, how should I say it, the, what do you call these people? The ones that are Vance Day doesn't want to do services for, what do you, I don't know what word to use without swearing, okay? Whatever you call them.
Same-sex couple.
How come they have, in all facets of life and all walks of life, how come they have a higher income? What do they, is there anything in that, is there a correlation between why the politicians like them because they have a tendency to have a higher income than the poor people? The politicians talk about the health, but actually they want to get money out of anyone they can. This is a voter, what do you call it, a voter, whatever, a voter paradise for the elections of the Democratic Party, so they can get all these people to vote for them constantly year after year after year and not pay attention to the poor people that talk about their health.
Oh.
Did I say that? I had 8.5 years of college. I don't like to talk about it, okay?
What was the question?
Homosexual gay people have a higher income and the Democrats go after them constantly, you know, as a voting bloc. How come they don't? They talk about the poor people, but actually they go up.
Higher income. Yeah. So yeah, the Democrats talk about taking care of the poor, but it seems like they're serving the interests of the rich. Yeah, it's just pure propaganda, right? I mean, one of the things that I think everybody's seeing, and the reason why we have anti-establishment mood across the country, is a number of our leaders, especially in the Obama administration and my opponent, I'd call them corporate socialists or big business Democrats, right? They use the power of the government to help rich people get richer, right? And this is what Solyndra is, right? Solyndra is a non-viable company that only exists because people in government gave them money. Same thing happened with the bailouts, and the same thing has happened with almost every single major piece of legislation that's moved through, right? I mean, it's clear now that Obamacare was a huge payoff to the insurance companies, right? And you know, that's a big problem. So, yeah.
And what would you say would be the single greatest concern you have in your campaign as far as, you know, we citizens here, what should we be most concerned about that you can do something about?
Repeat the question.
My understanding, it's a good question. I think my understanding is what do I think is the biggest issue, or the thing that we should be most concerned about as citizens? Would you say that's right?
Yeah.
I think it's the government picking winners and losers at all different levels. So I'm not trying to be evasive. I just see it as a pervasive problem. So one of the things that I've seen happening is things are getting federalized, and the federal government is using its power to influence every aspect of our lives. The bureaucrats are having more and more and more control over everything. So, we use Obamacare because it's like the perfect example, but you have a situation where the federal government has told you have to buy a product, has told you which product you have to buy, has told a company which product they have to sell you, right? I mean, this is a government telling you something that's just un-American. Our government doesn't do that, right? But it's not just that. I mean, we have an educational system where the federal government is telling schools what they have to teach, is telling these kids they have to go to these schools, right? You have a situation, now with the shooting, you have a situation where the Obama administration wants to take over policing, right? You have the federal government writing rules about what rules should govern bathrooms, right? I mean, that's massive intervention at a scale that even FDR wouldn't have dreamed of, So that's the macro issue, right? Does that answer your question?
In other words, the power shifting from local to central control.
Yeah, and then them abusing that power to benefit their buddies, right? It's not we think of the government as it should be when regulation is necessary. It should be an impartial referee. But in all aspects of regulation, the government is putting on a jersey of the team that pays it the most. And that's a pervasive problem.
As a senior citizen, I have noticed that just about any illegal that crosses the border has better health care, better welfare benefits, damn sure better representation in Congress, better advocacy groups, and I'm sitting here with the fact that I didn't get one additional dime out of the federal government for my Social Security payments this year versus last year, when they're throwing billions and billions of dollars all over the country, and the seniors are getting it up to here.
Yeah. No, I'm running for Congress to represent you, the American citizens, right? I think that's one of the things that we've seen over the last 8 years is we have a whole bunch of people in office that you vote for that represent people other than you.
Yeah.
Right? They represent big businesses, they represent foreign interests, they represent, the immigrants, and I got no problem with people from other countries having representation, but that's not my job. My job as your representative is to represent you, the American citizen.
What can you do to help us create a healthier economy and more jobs in Oregon and Clackamas County?
Yeah, so the first thing, and this again, it's beating a dead horse, but repealing Obamacare. I can't tell you how big of a job killer this is. And I know everyone says it, and so you get kind of tired of hearing it. But I have farmers that I meet with, their #1 issue is Obamacare, because they're employers. I know a guy who has 3 accountants and a lawyer just trying to figure out how to comply with the law. Right? There are people that have 49 employees that will not hire a 50th employee because all of a sudden they get caught by all the regulations if they go over that. I mean, it is just it's unbelievably destructive to our economy. Again, that's kind of the 1,000-pound gorilla in the room. We have to repeal it, So I'm sorry, you've probably heard that before, but it really is true, Yeah.
To his point about illegal aliens getting better care and so forth, do you pay close attention to the ways in which the government funds them, like with the USDA? USDA funds housing for farm workers, which is a euphemism for illegal aliens. Food stamps is packaged into USDA. So when they have this huge budget that they want funded, are you going to pay attention to who's getting the money?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think this is another again, another pervasive problem, specifically to your issue, but overall, one of the ways that the government picks winners and losers is through spending your money on other people, right? I mean, I saw it with the bailouts where it was your money that they took and gave to GM and GE and these Wall Street banks, and, you know, they just got your money. And they paid their salaries with it. And that was your money, and that's wrong. So specifically to that issue, yes, absolutely, I'll try to, you know, but yeah, it's a broader issue than just that as well. Yeah, I really think we really have to shrink the size of government. We really do. And if we shrink the size of government, all these problems get solved.
So, you know, it's pretty clear that we have a dollar issue in Oregon, and true wealth truly lies within the resources that come from the land. Utah has a big push to restore states' rights back to public lands. How do you feel about that here in Oregon?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important.
Yeah.
I live in Staten, which is a town that got destroyed when they shut down the forest industry in the 80s. And you know, they promised us that the new economy would come, and the new economy's never come.
How do we get back to that? What's the first step?
Well, right now we have a situation where the government, but through government action, destroyed our economy. They put our counties on welfare payments, right? They cut those welfare payments, and then they scold us in the media when we refuse to raise taxes on money we don't have from jobs we lost when they destroyed our economy, right? So the first thing we have to do is rebuild the economy, and we can't do that until we have access to the lands. So the first thing is we have to get those lands back, and I think returning the lands to the states will be a first step.
Yeah.
How do we do it?
I mean,
Thank you.
Sorry.
All right,